plane disappeared, lost for 34 years, has now been found perfectly whole. No debris scattered across the earth, no shattered fuselage torn apart by time. And the passengers, they are still there. Not fragile skeletons, not faded traces of lives long gone, but lifelike bodies, untouched by age, as if they never left the sky. How could this be real? What truly happened aboard flight QZ-12 that day? And why, after all these years, does it seem like no one ever walked off that plane? Some believe science has no answer. Others say it bends reality itself, pointing to powers beyond human reach. In today's story, we uncover the chilling mystery of this Indonesian flight. But the truth may stretch even further than imagination allows. On October 14, 1989, at Soekarno-Hatta Airport, commercial flight QZ-12 prepared for takeoff from Jakarta to Surabaya. Passengers, including business professionals and students, waited in line, some whispering quiet prayers for a safe journey. By the window, Pak Salim traced the worn edges of his Quran, turning to his wife. "Let's read Surah Al-Kahfi for a blessed journey," he suggested. She nodded, offering a small, uneasy smile. Nearby, Fauzi and Ridwan, students returning home, reminded each other to recite the Safar prayer, their excitement evident as they clutched their boarding passes tightly. A young mother cradled her baby, murmuring reassurances. Instead of irritation, fellow passengers offered kind smiles and understanding nods. These were ordinary travelers, each with a destination in mind, unaware that their journey would take a turn beyond imagination. The airport speakers crackled. "Flight QZ-12, now boarding." Passengers moved toward the jet bridge, some chatting, others lost in thought. Outside, the night sky stretched wide and clear, a perfect evening for flight. Inside the cockpit, Captain Haroon, a respected and devout pilot, completed his pre-flight checks. As always, he whispered a prayer before addressing the passengers. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard QZ-12. We anticipate a smooth and safe flight tonight. Please take your seats and prepare for departure." His voice carried a sense of calm as flight attendants assisted passengers, secured luggage, and fastened seatbelts. Outside, the runway lights stretched into the horizon as the engines rumbled to life. Passengers exchanged glances, whispered prayers, and gripped their armrests a little tighter. And then lift off. The plane climbed steadily, Jakarta's shimmering cityscape shrinking below. For the passengers and crew, it was just another routine flight. Until it wasn't. Everything seemed normal until suddenly it wasn't. Have you ever experienced a moment when everything felt fine, only for it to change in an instant? Share your thoughts in the comments. About 20 minutes after takeoff, the cabin lights flickered intermittently, casting brief shadows over the passengers. A faint vibration followed, causing some to exchange curious glances. Meanwhile, the flight attendants remained composed, offering reassuring smiles, while Captain Haroon stayed calm, his hands steady on the controls. A voice came over the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are making minor adjustments to our flight path due to navigation concerns. There is no cause for worry." Seated by the window, Fauzi nudged Ridwan and pointed outside. "Does it feel like we're on a different route?" Ridwan peered out, then replied with a shrug. "Maybe a slight detour because of weather." Across the cabin, an elderly man turned his prayer beads in his hands, offering quiet reassurance to a few passengers unsettled by the flickering lights. "Stay seated, keep calm." The crew is in contact with the control tower. Some passengers turned to quiet reflection, while others engaged in conversation, trying to stay at ease. In the cockpit, Captain Haroon and his co-pilot verified the flight data. Then, a sudden jolt of turbulence rattled the cabin. Overhead compartments shifted slightly as a few passengers tightened their grip on the armrests. Then, just as quickly, the turbulence faded. A soft chime rang, followed by the captain's voice. "Everything is under control. We appreciate your patience as we finalize adjustments." Gradually, a sense of calm returned. Conversations resumed, and nervous glances faded. The flickering lights. The turbulence. It all seemed manageable. But then, in mere moments, flight QZ-12 went completely silent. No distress call, No emergency alert. Just vanished. And what followed left even the most experienced investigators utterly baffled. The control tower attempted to establish contact with Flight QZ-12, but there was no response. It was as if the plane had suddenly vanished from radar. Control Officer Hendra repeatedly called out over the radio. QZ-12, QZ-12, please report your position. Only static replied, signaling a temporary communication failure. Inside the cabin, some passengers anxiously glanced out the window. The sky, once clear, had turned into a dense layer of gray clouds, obscuring the view ahead. In the cockpit, Captain Haroon gestured to the co-pilot to activate emergency equipment and pressed the signal button so the control tower could track them. But the system blinked without transmitting coordinates. The flight attendants moved calmly through the aisle, ensuring seatbelts were secure and giving instructions in both Indonesian and English. Seated in 12B, Pak Salim grasped his wife's hand, whispering a quiet prayer. She nodded and joined him in silent supplication. Nearby, Fauzi turned to Ridwan and encouraged him to lead a group prayer. A few passengers followed, their voices soft but steady. The cockpit instruments flickered with conflicting data, making navigation increasingly difficult. Meanwhile, at the control tower, officers detected the loss of communication and immediately activated search and rescue protocols. Despite urgent efforts, Flight QZ-12 had disappeared without a trace. As search teams scoured oceans and jungles for clues, the mystery only deepened. How could an entire aircraft simply vanish? But before we explore further, I have a 10-second request. If you enjoy stories like this, take a moment to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. It helps this channel more than you know. And in return, I'll do everything I can to make this show even better for you. Deal? Search teams scoured the sky and sea, looking for any trace of the missing aircraft. But despite extensive efforts, no wreckage or emergency signals were detected. At the command post, anxious family members awaited updates, some visibly emotional as they clung to hope for their loved one's safety. An officer named Andy suggested the plane might have gone down in the Java Sea. Yet, when patrol boats searched the area, all they found were unrelated ocean debris. Meanwhile, local fishermen reported seeing an unusual light in the sky on the night the aircraft vanished. But there was no confirmation that it had any connection to Flight QZ-12. As the media picked up the story, theories began circulating, some pointing to mechanical failure. On television, a religious leader urged the public to stay hopeful and continue praying. The government formed a special investigation team to lead the case, carefully reviewing control tower recordings. But so far, no clear findings had emerged. Investigators noted a brief emergency signal from the cockpit before all communication was lost. Meanwhile, families gathered with religious leaders, seeking comfort and guidance, offering prayers for a miracle. Speculation swirled about unexplained possibilities, but aviation experts insisted that only a thorough investigation could uncover the truth. The search area expanded, reaching deep into mountainous regions along the flight's route. But the dense jungle canopy made exploration difficult, and no conclusive evidence was found. After weeks with no breakthrough, large-scale search efforts were put on hold, leaving the nation with more questions than answers. Yet for years, families held on to hope and investigators pursued every possible lead. But no trace of Flight QZ-12 ever surfaced. Until one day, deep in the untouched jungles of Kalimantan, a discovery so unbelievable it challenged everything we thought we knew about the fate of the missing aircraft. Fast forward to November 2023, a scientific expedition led by Mr. Nurden, a tropical forest biologist, was deep in Kalimantan, conducting field research when they stumbled upon an old aircraft wreck. As they pushed aside thick jungle vines, they froze in shock. The airline's logo was faint but still recognizable on the wing's surface. It was QZ-12, the flight that had disappeared decades ago. The expedition team wasted no time, contacting authorities via satellite radio to report their astonishing find. But something wasn't right. The aircraft's frame was mostly intact, its rusted body covered in thick webs. Clearly, it had been left undisturbed for years, yet nature had barely claimed it. Inside the dark cabin, a female researcher named Cinta carefully stepped in, flashlight in hand. She let out a startled gasp before calling out Mr. Nurdin. "You have to see this. If this plane landed safely, who or what was flying it? Drop your wildest theories in the comments below." Inside the wreckage, an astonishing discovery awaited. As the team entered the dimly lit cabin, they found rows of seats still arranged in perfect order, some partially covered in moss. Yet, the most haunting sight was the remains of a passenger, still seated as if time had never moved. A heavy silence fell over the team. The atmosphere was thick with unease, yet everything appeared eerily undisturbed. One of the researchers, trembling, pointed at something. "Look," they whispered. "There's an open book in this passenger's hand." It seems like they were reading. Despite the damp, shadowy interior, no strong odor filled the air. There were no typical signs of decay, as if time itself had preserved the remains. Mr. Nurdin quickly instructed the group to proceed carefully, documenting everything for scientific and historical analysis. Forensic experts arrived and noticed something beyond explanation. The bodies were astonishingly well preserved, despite being exposed to nature for over 3 decades. Such preservation defied scientific norms, leaving the experts searching for answers. Dr. Farid, a leading forensic specialist, closely examined the remains. "This requires deeper investigation," he stated. Meanwhile, a cultural scholar on site acknowledged the profound spiritual significance of the discovery. Some of the deceased held objects tied to faith and tradition, reinforcing the sense of mystery. One particular case stood out: a man clutching a small open book, its pages still visible. Across from him, a woman's remains were found gently wrapped around what seemed to be a child. However, there were no apparent signs of fear or struggle, leading investigators to question what had truly occurred. The forensic team collected samples for further analysis, and early reports suggested an unusual preservation process that called for a more extensive study. A police investigator confirmed that the wreckage had been there for over 30 years, yet the body's condition did not align with natural expectations. Investigators examined the environment, testing for possible factors that could explain the anomaly: radioactivity, soil composition, even air quality. Yet nothing conclusive emerged. As the inquiry continued, a respected scholar remarked, "There are countless things in this world that defy explanation. Moments like these remind us that science and faith often cross paths." Authorities and experts agreed that a thorough investigation was necessary before drawing conclusions. A combined team of forensic specialists, aviation experts, and historians worked tirelessly to unravel the truth. Dr. Farid observed something peculiar. Though minor injuries were found on some remains, they did not align with those expected in a high-impact crash, deepening the mystery further. Then, buried beneath layers of debris, the flight recorder was finally uncovered. Once powered up, the team managed to extract a brief, fragmented recording. Through the static, Captain Haroun's voice could be heard, his words filled with distress. His final transmission was cut short abruptly. Was this a miracle? A bizarre phenomenon of nature? Or something entirely beyond human comprehension? As scientists analyzed the remains, belief and logic stood at odds, both striving to explain a mystery that time refused to erase. Amidst the tense atmosphere, some team members found comfort in reciting sacred verses together, as if it eased their fears. The strange circumstances led to speculation: was the disappearance of Flight QE-12 merely a technical failure, or had it been influenced by forces beyond modern science? The discovery of an undecayed body sparked a heated debate. Some saw it as a divine sign, while others sought a logical explanation. A scholar of the Quran referenced the tale of Takeoff, in which believers were miraculously preserved for centuries. Meanwhile, Professor Harris, a biologist, suggested that environmental factors could have played a role, though no scientific evidence supported this claim. Religious scholars pointed to verses about divine protection, emphasizing that some phenomena exist beyond human reasoning. The government facilitated discussions, hoping to uncover the truth, yet no single explanation was universally accepted. Journalists covered the story from various perspectives, some treating it as a miracle, while others remained skeptical. A religious leader urged people to view it not as a controversy but as a lesson in faith. Aviation experts examined the flight data but found no clear reason for how the plane remained intact in a remote forest. Locals sought insight from religious scholars, who reaffirmed their belief that fate and divine will could influence reality. As the discussion unfolded, the event highlighted the ongoing dialogue between faith and scientific investigation. Investigators uncovered a final note written by the pilot and co-pilot containing a prayer before takeoff, evidence of their faith. Several passengers, returning from a spiritual gathering, were reportedly engaged in prayer and deep discussions on the meaning of life during the flight. Radar data showed that the aircraft should have stayed on its planned course, yet it mysteriously veered toward Kalimantan. The skies were clear, and the control tower had received the pilot's voice moments before the connection was lost. Forensic experts determined that the engine was still running when the plane landed, yet there were no signs of impact or fire. A technician analyzing the wreckage noted that the descent appeared highly controlled, preventing major structural damage. Then came the final mystery: the timestamp. The cockpit's digital clock was frozen at 1842, but the date displayed in an unrecognizable format. The strange findings fueled theories of possible anomalies, yet no definitive conclusion could be drawn. Aircraft disappear. But don't let this channel vanish from your feed. Subscribe and activate the notification bell so you never miss another mind-boggling aviation mystery. But as investigators dug deeper, more bizarre stories surfaced. Could Flight QZ-12 have encountered something that defies human understanding? Mr. Nurdin, the expedition leader, described the forest's remote location, explaining there was no landing strip for a plane like QZ-12. Local religious leaders suggested starting the investigation with prayers, seeking protection and guidance. Reports of strange occurrences in the area led forensic experts to analyze soil, water, and plant samples, searching for preservative compounds. Early tests found nothing unusual, but scientists continued investigating, hoping to explain the mystery. At an emergency meeting, officials, scholars, and researchers discussed the findings so far. At night, team members observed dim lights and heard rustling sounds, making some uneasy. Locals believe the area holds deep spiritual significance, often choosing to avoid it. Pak Daying, a respected community leader, mentioned that on certain nights, distant voices could be heard, but their source remained unknown. Surveillance cameras set up near the wreckage experienced rapid battery drainage, while footage only captured indistinct shapes. One team member, Lena, reported seeing a white-robed figure standing near the plane, but before others could verify, it vanished into the darkness. Even more unsettling, the air surrounding the wreckage felt colder, despite no recorded temperature drop. A religious leader on the team recited prayers each night, offering comfort. Meanwhile, villagers assisted with supplies but kept their distance, sensing a powerful presence in the area. The rational mind seeks answers, yet the evidence refuses to align with known science. Even the wreckage itself showed no signs of a standard crash. What truly happened in those final moments before the plane vanished? And why did it seem as if time itself had simply stopped? The team discovered an open Quran in the plane's cabin, turned to Surah Al-Kahf, verses 9 through 26, the story of the people of the cave, believers preserved by God as they slept for decades. Scholars noted similarities with the QZ-12 passengers, whose bodies defied natural decay. Some recited the verses seeking guidance, while others reflected on the faith of those on board. Investigators found the aircraft's navigation system slightly damaged but still functional, which seemed unusual. The cockpit remained intact, the landing gear was fully extended, and the plane appeared to have landed smoothly. The engine had lasted beyond expectations, deepening the mystery further. The final transmission captured the crew reciting prayers before the signal abruptly ended. Passenger belongings were still neatly arranged, untouched since departure. Local villagers recalled a bright light in the sky on the night of the disappearance, followed by distant echoes of prayers. Some claimed to see the shadow of a plane passing overhead on the same date each year. Out of fear and deep belief, they hesitated to speak out, linking it to ancient legends about the enchanted forest. At the crash site, scholars performed ruqyah, describing an intense spiritual presence. Some heard faint verses echoing from an unknown source, as if the prayers of the past still lingered. Researchers detected unusual electromagnetic activity and an unexpected absence of bacteria, raising scientific questions about preservation. While experts sought logical explanations, others viewed it as a testament to divine intervention. Religious leaders and scholars gathered, engaging in prayers and discussions. A respected scholar, Kiai Mahfoud, spoke of wisdom unfolding over time, drawing parallels to the people of the cave. The mystery of QZ-12 became more than just an unsolved case. It became a symbol of faith, the boundaries of human knowledge, and the wonders of the unknown. Even as scientists continued their analysis, one undeniable truth remained: this discovery had changed lives forever. Whether seen as a miracle or an enigma, Flight QZ-12 left behind more than just unanswered questions. It left a legacy. The Kiai urged faith in a higher power, reminding scholars to stay humble. Researchers sought to bridge science and spirituality, showing their compatibility. After a lecture, scholars embraced Mr. Nurden's team, strengthening their resolve. Amidst complex research, they gathered for reflection and guidance, hoping QZ-12 would offer a meaningful lesson worldwide. Scholars and volunteers documented the discovery through books, articles, and lectures. Religious forums sparked discussions, and a sacred text found at the crash site inspired renewed faith-based study. Interest in spiritual tourism grew, though the government restricted visits to protect the ecosystem. QZ-12 became a key topic in historical and religious discussions, blending modern discoveries with timeless lessons. Bu Rama, who lost her husband in the crash, chronicled her 34-year search for clarity in finding you in eternity, sparking conversations on faith, sincerity, and science. Young educators used it to connect spirituality with modern understanding. Over time, QZ-12 became a symbol of unity, inspiring diverse communities. The QZ-12 memorial near the mass grave remains a site of remembrance. Skeptics reconsidered their views after learning about preserved remains, drawing parallels to historical narratives. The tragedy underscored life's fragility and the limits of human knowledge, emphasizing introspection and good deeds. Initially unsure about spiritual interpretations, the research team began recognizing science's limits, sparking discussions on knowledge and belief. Grieving families found comfort in knowing their loved ones were honored. Each year, on QZ-12's anniversary, gatherings at the memorial and places of worship foster unity. If you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot to us. Click on the video that appears on your screen right now. I'm sure you'll love this content. Comment below about the next country you want to see featured on our channel. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video. Thanks for joining us. Leave a comment, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more interesting videos. See you in the next video.